Okay. Today, week 4 of our 10 for 10 challenge. We've been talking a little bit about why it's important to exercise as far as avoiding health complications, chronic diseases, and we got into physical activity and a little primer on nutrition last week. So today we're going to talk about food labels and how important it is to be able to understand and read those and how to use those to our benefit, and talk a little bit more about specifically tracking the different nutrients we're eating today. So does anyone have questions before we jump in? Okay. So last week, we talked about tracking our activities still, and then also we added in tracking our habits of nutrition and our diet. So some of you started tracking how many sugar products you were probably eating or calories. So today we're going to take that a little bit more specific. And we're going to do that through reading and learning a little bit more about the food labels, portion sizes, and how to interpret those food logs that you might have on your MyFitnessPal or whatever app you might be using to track all your foods that you're eating, so we know what we should be eating. So let's get into the food label. You've all probably seen this or an iteration of the food label there on the right side of the screen. Most foods and drinks are required to have a food label posted, either on the package itself or on the larger package it comes in. If it comes in a pack or something like gum, the stick of gum isn't necessarily going to have the nutrition label on it, but it will be on the pack that the gum comes in. So anything that has calories is required to have this nutrition label on it. So foods and drinks, like I said, unless it's a produce like a tomato or grape, or a vegetable like celery and stuff that just comes straight from the product itself and hasn't been altered. And sometimes they still do include the nutrition label somewhere if it has a package to it, but a lot of times you won't find anything associated with an apple. So a couple things to look at when you're looking at your food label. First thing is the top of it, the serving size. Something to really look at is the amount of servings in the particular item that you're looking at and what that measurement of an actual serving size is. So in this particular item, a serving size measures 1 cup, and there's about 2 cups worth of the item in this package. So when you're looking at all these numbers reflect 1 cup of the product, not the entire package. This is really important to pay attention to, especially in things that tend to be high in calories or sugars or and drinks like pop, energy drinks. A lot of times they will try to be misleading by showing you lower numbers here in the general food log label, and then they'll reduce the serving size to something that we might not necessarily think as the serving size. So pop is a really good example, or Gatorade. If you look at the nutrition label of older Gatorade bottles, it would say like 1/3 of the bottle, and then it would list all the numbers for 1/3 of the Gatorade. Well, most of us didn't realize that or wouldn't pay attention and figured that what we saw was the entire bottle of Gatorade, and that is not necessarily accurate. This is also pretty common. I've seen in energy drinks like Monster and stuff, where the serving size is much less than the actual can of Monster drink or whatever it might be. Sometimes coffees and lattes and stuff like that are also similar to that. Newer companies will sometimes have 2 columns listed, and one is for the serving size, and then they'll put a second column that's for the entire content of the product. So my husband was drinking an energy this weekend and I saw it and it had 2 columns. So the first column was for the portion size, which was like 8 ounces. And then the second column was for the entire can, which was like, I can't even remember, 20 some ounces. So definitely a difference, and you want to keep an eye on serving size. The next area is going to be calories. This is, again, remember, calories equal energy. So this is where our body gets our energy. So calories can be good and bad depending on if they're in excess or we're using them to burn fuel and rev up our engine. They'll also list the calories that come directly from fat. I wouldn't pay much attention to that because we're going to learn that fat tends to be a good thing, even though in the past we used to think it was a bad thing. So then there's going to be 3 main areas that our body gets calories from: fat, carbohydrates, and protein. Fat carries the most amount of calories per gram. There's 9 calories per gram of fat. So if I would take 12 times 9, that would give me how many calories of fat are contributing to this 250. I'm not good with my math, so you can do that. Carbohydrates and protein only have 4 grams of, or excuse me, 4 calories per gram. So these are a little less dense as far as calories per gram, which means technically you get to eat more with less calories counted. Alcohol has 7 grams of 7 calories per gram. So again, this isn't reflected in a nutrition label, but if you were having beer or wine or something, alcohol itself also is a calorie contributor, along with fat, carbs, and protein. So let's specifically look at fats. It's broken down into saturated and trans fats. Sometimes it'll also list mono or polyunsaturated fats. Saturated fats are primarily going to be found in your animal, dairy, butter products. Trans fats typically are going to be associated with things like vegetable oils and more of those processed fats and oils that they add. And unsaturated fats are going to be more of our nuts and seed oils, like olive oil, and stuff, grapeseed oil and stuff like that. So what we're really trying to avoid are the trans fats, and those are going to be those processed fats. So basically they take one of the other fats, and in the factory, so to speak, they'll process it, and it adds extra hydrogen, I think it is, to the mixture, and it turns into a trans fat. That's the more dangerous fat to our body. Saturated fat in moderation is okay. In some studies, it's shown to be extra protective, and others it's shown to lead to chronic diseases if eaten in excess. So the verdict's still kind of out, but in general, it's okay in moderation. And overall fat is good. Mono and polyunsaturated fats are super healthy to the body and actually shown to help your cholesterol levels and such. So those would be things, again, fish and nuts and seed oils, and so salmon and all those kind of things. Carbohydrates, that's going to be the next year. Oh, I should jump up. I didn't talk about cholesterol or sodium. These are just different molecules as well that are going to be in your foods. Cholesterol in the medical field gets a lot of bad rap. However, your body creates cholesterol, and rarely does the cholesterol you eat in the food contribute to high cholesterol levels in the blood. So it's just more of a body thing on how you eat and how active you are and what kind of cholesterol you're producing in the body. So you could cut out all the cholesterol in your diet, and your body's still going to produce some and influence your levels. So that's kind of misleading, and research is really coming out, I'd say, in the last 15 years supporting this. A lot of doctors are getting on board with this notion as well, that cholesterol is not such the bad guy that we used to reference it as. Sodium also, most of our sodium is going to come from packaged foods, not necessarily the table salt we add. So here looking at sodium can be helpful to make sure that things aren't super high in sodium. So for sure, we want these numbers closer to like 10% or below in this pink column over there. Okay, let's move to carbohydrates. This is the area, obviously, if we're looking at weight loss or weight management, we're going to be focusing on quite a bit. First of all, it's going to list total carbs. So that's a combination of all the different kinds of sugars in this food. So there's fiber, there's sugars, and there's starch, all within a carbohydrate. So fiber is going to be those stringy particles in the carb that the body can't break down. So those are healthy to the body. They help keep us regular, help keep us clean. So fiber is a very good carb to have. So when we see 0%, this isn't a very high fiber food, not a good option probably. Sugars are going to be straight sugars. So these could be added sugars or they could be naturally occurring. So an apple, for instance, is going to have natural sugars. A candy bar is also going to have sugars. Most of those are going to be added sugars. So sometimes it's going to be hard to tell on the nutrition label. So you're going to have to look down and read in the ingredient list if there's added sugars. I do believe the new nutrition label is starting to require companies to list specifically added sugars underneath the sugar category. I'm not sure what the deadline is for all products to be updated, but most of them have already started to add that added sugars line underneath sugar, so you can see how much extra was added from the natural products used. Those are things we want to avoid, especially if we're trying to lose weight, because remember, excess calories, particularly excess sugar, is what turns into weight and fat in our body. So the remainder is just going to be those complex carb or starches. So 31 minus 5 minus 0 is going to give you your leftover carbs. Most of the time they're in the form of starch. So think like flours, rice, potatoes are going to have a lot of carb starches in them. Some of them more healthy than others. Obviously, white flour versus a potato is going to be a lot different. And the fiber content is going to be different there too. We'll get back to the sugar part in a little bit. We'll jump to protein. So that's going to be the last thing listed before it gets to the vitamins and minerals. Protein is super helpful, especially when you're trying to lose weight or maintain weight. Most of us don't eat near enough protein. The nice thing, I don't know if I mentioned this already, but the body can only store a certain amount of protein. So if you eat in excess of protein, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's going to be hard to do because it's so filling. But the body's just going to excrete the protein it doesn't use. So it doesn't convert that to fat like it does the excess sugars we eat. So making sure we have protein at all of our meals and snacks is really important, especially when it comes to weight management and weight loss. So if you're not already making sure you have protein continuously throughout your day and in your diet, that's an area to focus on. And then we talked about vitamins and minerals being the end. This just shows you the percentage. Obviously, we want most of our vitamins and minerals to be on the higher side, so that would be like 20% or higher, being a good source of that vitamin. So we'll go a little bit further on how do you determine how many calories and how much fat should I be eating in a day and how many carbohydrates should I be eating in a day and how much protein should I have in a day. The first thing to do is to figure out how many calories you should be eating in a day and then what that composition of calories should look like. So I'm gonna, in the chat, hang on one second, I'm gonna get back to that. I'm gonna copy this chat thing. There's a formula here that will help you easily determine what your caloric intake should be. But basically, it uses your height and your weight and your activity levels on what you should be eating. So I typed it out if you're someone who loves pen and paper and the old-fashioned math and algebra. But basically, if you click that chat, it will take you to a link on the website where it's just very easy calculator, put in your age and your weight, and then look at your activity level. And it'll help you determine how many calories you need. So the first, your basal or baseline metabolism is the amount of calories your body needs when you're just resting. So just, day-to-day activities, sitting on the couch, watching TV or whatever. Your body's still requiring quite a bit of energy to get all of those functions in our body working. Generally, at least 1,400 calories is what most of us need just at a baseline. Then you're going to take that number times how active you feel you are at this point in time. So if you're someone who's pretty sedentary, you would take your baseline metabolism times 1.2. If you're on the extreme side of things where you're super active, you work out every day, you're also super active on the job, you're going to take your baseline metabolism times 1.9. That's going to give you your total caloric need for the day that your body needs not only to help you survive and function, but also help you perform on the exercise side of things and build muscle and stuff like that. So most of us probably aren't eating enough to meet our caloric needs if you're someone who's dieting and trying to lose weight, because that's where we tend to cut things is through our diet and our calories. And particularly for exercising, we're not fueling our body with the calories it requires. So it's also kind of getting mixed signals on what it should be doing, and it's harder for us to lose weight. So really important to figure out what your specific caloric intake should be and where you're at eating. So we'll talk about in a little bit here how we're going to track that in an app or a different way, and how to make sure that you're staying close to your caloric goal. Some basic tips around your calories needed each day, your metabolism rate, is one, never eat less than your baseline or basal metabolic rate. Remember, that's the minimum your body needs to survive and just wake up and sit on the couch. So you need to fuel your body. If you're eating less than that consistently, you're shutting down that engine, and it's going to be super hard to ever lose weight. And then when you do eat, the body's, again, its engine is not at full capacity. So most of that energy is going to go to waste and just get stored as fat. So even not eating enough is going to possibly help you gain weight, which is counterintuitive to what we want to do. It's also important that we need to make sure that if our goal is to gain muscle or fitness gains, that we need to maintain our caloric intake too. And sometimes that even means adding extra calories so that and again, these have to be the right calories like proteins and healthy fats and stuff, but our bodies are requiring that extra energy to help it build. It's hard to build when you don't have enough, right, of anything. So sometimes if your particular gain is not weight loss, it's more on the performance or fitness enhancement side of things, there might be a need for you to add calories into your diet. I think I can't remember when Michael Phelps was in the Olympics, and that year he like went crazy and won everything. I think they were saying he ate like 14,000 calories a day. And so just like a huge example of like his body to meet his performance, the amount of fuel he had to give his body was just outrageous, but necessary. If you're trying to lose weight, the goal is to eat in a number between your baseline metabolism and your daily caloric needs. You're going to create a little bit of a reduction in what you're currently eating, but not so much that it goes below your baseline metabolism. So in my case, I think my baseline metabolism was like 1,400 calories. And if I'm super active every day, I need about 2,200 calories. So if I'm trying to lose weight, I'm going to try to eat somewhere in that range each day to give my body a little bit of a deficit, but not too much where my metabolism needs to slow down and shut off. Sometimes our goals and then also our body type can influence our metabolism as well. So this is a little breakdown of like how much of one particular calorie source you might choose to eat from. So I'll try to talk through this, but it might be confusing. So if you have questions, please speak up. This first column here are going to be if your goals are more on the endurance side of things, or if you're wanting that long, lean body look, or if you're someone who's one of those like garbage can eaters who like can eat all they want and never gain weight, even if it's the wrong kind of foods. So these particular people are really lucky in that they process carbohydrates pretty well. Therefore, they get away with eating carbohydrates pretty well. So if you're someone who's trying to lose weight through like jogging, you're training for a half marathon or 5K, and so running and long distance type of exercise is your go-to choice for fitness and weight loss, you might want to eat along the endurance column. So about 20% of your calories are going to come from fat, 25% protein, and about half from carbohydrates. Most of us are going to fall in this middle balance category. We're kind of a happy medium, kind of normal, average. If we eat too bad, we're going to put on weight, but we can also lose weight if we stick to our guns. So this person's going to need about 40% of our calories coming from fat, which is pretty high. So again, the notion that fat is not bad. Protein is pretty high. Again, 30% of our calories from protein. Most of us probably are not there yet. And then 30% of carbs. Most of us are probably eating double this. So unless we've started looking at weight loss. So here's kind of the happy medium I think most of us probably fall in. If you're someone who's pretty overweight and you need to lose a lot of weight, or that's really your goal, or you're just someone who feels like maybe you're a little bit stockier and you gain weight just by looking at a piece of candy, this might be your column to look at. So you're going to want to eat 40% of your foods from fat, which is a lot. Again, you're thinking, what? But again, fat's not the enemy here. 35% of your calories from protein and a pretty low carbohydrate intake, 25%. And again, what we're trying to do is limit those sugars and that these excess calories that can convert it to fat that contribute to our weight gain. So when you're doing your MyFitnessPal or whatever tracking tool you're doing with your diet, at the end of each day, it should give you a breakdown of where your calories are coming from. And I'll show you that. But this chart would be something to come back to and reflect. And depending on where kind of your goal is on this, you might see, okay, I keep eating constantly too many carbs, or I'm never getting close to the amount of protein I need. That can help you change your diet a little bit to help you get to your goals faster. I printed off, or I guess I didn't showed a copy of mine from a couple of days. So this is using MyFitnessPal. So you put in your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner, your snacks, and it does a nice job of calculating where all your calories are coming from. So I ate about 2,000 calories the other day, which was in my range. That was good. However, only 8% this day was from protein, which is pretty low. Remember, I'm trying to get to like 30%. My carbs and were okay. I had probably a little too much fat that needed to be more in the protein category. The next day over here, I had a little bit more protein, which was good, a little bit more balanced carbs and fat. So this was probably a better day for me versus this other day because I'm a little bit more consistent with this 40, 30, 30 goal than I was over here with like 60, 30, and 8. That's pretty sad, 8 percent protein. So definitely didn't eat enough protein that day. And remember, that's really the one we want to try to stick to. Hopefully you all are using or have identified a food tracking app because I think this is going to be really helpful for you. There's lots if you want to put them in the chat on which ones you've been using. That's great. Like I said, this is MyFitnessPal. This is the free version. You can pay for a version that offers you a lot more information, but this is all I really need. But I'm sure some of you have some much better apps that you're accustomed to. And I'll let you pick whatever you want. And if you're someone who does this the old-fashioned way and is literally going to look at nutrition labels and write down your calories each day, I'm glad you have the time to do that. So, okay, we'll keep going here. Oh, another thing for this particular week, you'll see these yellow circles here. We're going to look at how many grams of sugar we've been eating. Because remember, that's one of our goals too, is to limit our sugar intake with this challenge because that tends to be the culprit of where we're putting on our weight. This particular day, I ate 33 grams too many of sugar. And the other day, I actually underate sugar. So that was good. And obviously, this day looked a lot better in as far as ratios too. So when I eat better, I don't have such an issue with over sugar consumption. It says my goal is about 58 grams. That's pretty high. If I'm trying to lose weight, I'm probably not going to want to eat that much anyway. Here is the new sugar guidelines that the USDA just released. So for adults and teens, the maximum amount of sugar is about 30 grams a day, which is not very much. For children, 24 grams, and for toddlers and young children, about 19 grams a day. So 30 grams goes pretty fast. 19 grams goes super fast for a kid. I mean, that's like maybe a juice box or something. And they're probably also eating a fruit snack and many other things like that. So it's pretty hard to stay at this sugar intake, but it is a nice goal to have if you're someone who's really trying to figure out, okay, what's a good number to shoot for? More so than what maybe your MyFitnessPal is recommending or something. Okay, what time we are? 12:25. I have a quick video, but I will show that at the end so that if you want to jump off, you can. It's just kind of silly. It's a game show about the food label. But your homework, I want to get to that before we end, is to one, continue to track your activity. But this time I also want you to track how many grams of sugar you're averaging each day. So look at your strength, or you can pick, maybe you don't want to track sugars, but maybe you want to pick your breakdown of fats, carbs, and protein and what percentages you're kind of averaging each week. And note if you're struggling with any of those areas or doing really good, like obviously protein is an issue for me. So pick something that you think you're going to struggle with. If it's sugar, do that. But if you feel like I want to track my protein percentage each week or carb percentage each week, customize it to how you want to do it. Okay. Any questions before I go back to the video? Okay. I will play this. If you don't want to stick around, that's fine. You can jump off because I don't have anything more to offer that. This is just kind of a corny video. And then we can get anywhere. Betty did ask any ways to get protein in that aren't meat. So good question, Betty. Feel free to answer in the chat if any of you guys have alternatives. I think some good ways are through other dairy products if you're not opposed to dairy. Whole fat and I would say whole food dairy products. Cottage cheese is a wonderful protein source in yogurts. Tofu, if you're into tofu, I'm not really into tofu. I found that for me to meet my goals, I've got to do some sort of protein shake or protein powder, especially if I'm on a hurry and I don't have time to eat or cook meat or meals with protein. Boiled eggs, or just eggs in general, I guess, hard-boiled eggs. Anyone else have good tips? We are going to have a whole session on protein, so we'll probably get to that. That's in 2 weeks. But I can, if you want, I mean, easily you can Google it, but we will definitely focus that in a couple weeks. Okay, I'll play the video and you guys can stick around if you want, or you can take off, but we will see you next week.
Welcome back to Are You Smarter Than a Food Label? The game show that tests the food label knowledge of ordinary, everyday, average people. I'm your host, Label Man, the FDA's graphic representation of the nutrition facts label. Oh, really? Our next contestant hails from the lettuce capital of the U.S. His friends call him Bulldog, but say he wouldn't hurt a fly. All the way from sunny California, please give a warm nutrition facts label welcome to Mr. Tim Patrick. Tim will ask you the question and you'll have the chance to answer. Or go to the food label. Or simply pass. However, you're allowed only one pass before you're disqualified. Let's get started. First question is multiple choice. A serving size is determined by A, the size of the package it's in, B, a predetermined portion that's easily found on the nutrition facts label, or C, the weight of the person eating that particular serving.
I'll go with B, a predetermined portion that's easily found on the nutrition facts label.
Correct! A package can easily have more than one serving. Remember, the nutrition facts label has the serving size and the number of servings, as well as other important nutritional information. Next question, true or false? The calorie section of the nutrition facts label shows the number of calories in that particular package.
I'll have to say true, Label Man.
Oh, I'm sorry, but it shows the number of calories per serving, not per package. Next question, what is the 5-20 rule? A, the formula for the number of calories it takes to run 5 miles in 20 minutes. B, the body's standard burn rate for fat in a food. Or C, a way to tell if a food is low or high in a particular nutrient.
That's easy, Label Man. The answer is C, a way to tell if a food is low or high in a particular nutrient.
That's right. If a food's daily value, or DV, of a nutrient is 5% or less, it's low in that nutrient. 20% or more means it's high. This can be bad or good depending on if it's a nutrient you want more or less of. Can you give me an example of a nutrient on each end of the scale, Tim?
Something like saturated fat would be a good thing to get 5% or less of, I would think. And you probably want a high number, 20% DV or more, of something like calcium or fiber, probably.
Good choices. Other nutrients to get more of include vitamins A, C, and iron. And those to get less of include saturated fat, cholesterol, and sodium. Moving along to our next question, true or false? It's impossible to truly know the nutritional value of a meal when you're away from home. Tim?
Well, I know that many restaurants are including healthy choices on their menus now, like light fares or low sodium or low fat selections. I'm not sure if they include the nutritional value, however. Oh, I did see the nutrition facts listed on a napkin at one takeout place the other day. I'm going to have to go with false, Label Man.
That's right. Many restaurants and food chains are making the nutritional information available on their websites, their menus at the restaurant, even on the wrappers of their takeout food in some instances. If you can't find it, just ask. Tim, you're doing pretty good so far. You've come down to the final question. Get this one right and you'll win the grand prize. Answer it incorrectly and you go home empty-handed. Are you ready to put it all on the line?
I am, Label Man.
Okay, here we go. What are the 3 things to remember when making healthy food choices? You have 10 seconds. Okay, Tim, let's see how you answered.
That would be calories, servings, and percent daily value.
That's correct! You're our grand prize winner! Congratulations! Make sure you join us next time on Are You Smarter Than a Food Label? Bye-bye, everybody.